Well, in the Wire Bay, we certainly don't need reminding that last year's floods changed many lives. That's certainly true for a lot of people who live in various parts of the region, but perhaps it's also true for people who were only here for a short time. Major Pat O'Neill headed the Army contingent, which played such a positive role in our region's immediate response to the floods, a deployment which helped us immensely, but also seemed to strike an emotional chord with many of the soldiers involved. Well, Pat O'Neill is back in the Wire Bay briefly. I'm very pleased to say he's with me today. Pat, welcome along.
Thanks for having me, David.
Good to see you back in the Wire Bay.
Indeed, it's good to be back up here in Bundaberg and see the town again.
I guess it looks quite a bit different to the last time you were here, doesn't it?
Yeah, I just went for a quick drive around North Bundaberg and having a look at all the houses that have been repaired. I noticed that there's one house that's up on stilts at the moment with repairs still going on. All the roads that were potholed and some massive washaways have now all been repaired. And it was nice to drive over the Talon Bridge, which we put a temporary repair over at the start. It's now fully repaired, so it was nice to be able to drive over there, and what was 12 months ago is now just a memory.
So 15 months on now from the floods, what really stands out for you about that experience?
It'd be the community and also the work that we did here with the District Disaster Coordination Centre, which was basically run by the Chief Executive Officer here, Peter Byrne. And I've had time to think about the work that he did and all the other emergency services, and it was just amazing. With the floods, people being in the emergency accommodation, people with children and elderly, under some pretty challenging circumstances. And the work that Peter did and the compassion shown by the people working in the Civic Centre in those really challenging times was just phenomenal. And there was a lot that we of the Army could take away from the way that they conducted themselves.
A very emotional time, I would think, for everyone involved as well. What about you? What's it like for you being right in the thick of things where you have to make some pretty crucial decisions? What sort of impact did it have on you?
The decisions were pretty easy for me, to be honest. My boss, Brigadier Greg Bilton, said when I got up here, he empowered me to make whatever decisions that I needed to make. And I can remember being in the coordination centre and Paul Neville, the member for Hinkler, came in and said, we need to get somebody to Burrum Heads. And my guys were driving up in 66 vehicles up from Brisbane, and I was able to make the decision straight away just to send a team off to Burrum Heads and leave them to their own devices. They got there was a young officer, Lieutenant Mark Hines, who went in, met the local community, worked out what needed to be done, and he did it without any input from me. And when my guys got here, I had some pretty simple direction for them, which was, if you can help, help. I was flying around in the Black Hawks, looking at the areas that needed support. And for me, if the most junior soldier on the ground could see something that needed to be done, or somebody came up and asked for help, just letting them know that they could make that decision, they could go and provide that help without having to ask for permission, I think that's how we achieved a reasonable effect whilst we were up here.
And what about the other soldiers? What sort of feedback have you got from them about how the experience was for them?
It was humbling for them. We've got a lot of soldiers who had returned from Afghanistan, Iraq, East Timor, on the Solomon Islands, in some pretty challenging circumstances which mightn't have been as friendly as you could operate in. And coming here to Bundaberg, working in a community that were so grateful for the assistance provided, and just the comfort from seeing somebody in a uniform, it was affirming for them, having been through some challenging times themselves, to be here able to provide support in their own country. Seeing members of the CWA coming out with baked goods every day, a never-ending supply of ginger beer. It was excellent for them, and I think it formed part of their, I guess in some ways, rehabilitation coming back to Australia after some challenging deployments.
Sure. And of course, it wasn't just Bundaberg that you were involved in. You were operating right across the region. What are your memories of, for example, the North Burnett?
Yeah, again, as with Burrum Heads, there was a young Lieutenant, Brett Ritchie, who went up there to Gayndah and Mundubra. And again, he was empowered to basically crack on and get in there, and he had a team of Army engineers who went and provided some great support. Don War, the mayor up there, was I think he was going to try and keep Brett Ritchie up there, recruit him to the council. But I went up there, and again, it was the same response from around here in Bundaberg. But again, we were just there to help, and it was all the work of the other emergency services and the people that were here long after we left and went back to Brisbane. They were the heavy lifters. We were just here to provide what support that we could for that short amount of time.
What about the coastal areas that were hit by tornadoes? Were you involved there as well?
Yeah, we went out to Bargara and helped refurbish the Bowls Club and some areas around there. And when we first got here, one of our main tasks was just re-establishing some of those key infrastructures, community centres that people used, so that they could get some normalcy back, but also start moving from some of the recovery efforts into the rebuild phase.
No one wanted you to leave, did they? No one wanted you to go, but when you did eventually leave, my goodness, what a farewell you received.
Yeah, so they drove up through the streets, and to be honest, I didn't really want to do that, you know. We
Why
were here
not?
we were here for such a short amount of time, you know, providing a small amount of assistance, but the heavy work was still to be done. But the community, you know,
They demanded it.
Really wanted us to, and it was truly humbling. Driving through, we got presented a certificate by some kids from Bundaberg East State School where we'd done some work, and it was fantastic. And the guys drove back down with a smile on their faces. So there's been a lot of those members who have been back up to Bundaberg just to reconnect with members of the community that they form those bonds with.
Some people will stay with them for a long time, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
So great to see you back here. Thanks to you and all the guys for being involved, and safe journey back.
Thanks, David.